Hello, friends, and welcome back to Pinebrook Homestead. Today, we are canning tomatoes, and this is the easiest way to can them. It's called a raw pack method, and then we are going to put them in a water bath canner. So, the first step to doing this is going to be to blister the skins of the tomatoes. So, what we're going to do is just drop tomatoes into hot boiling water, and the skins will blister very easily, and it doesn't take a long time at all. I already have one bowl done, and so we're going to take care of this bowl, and then we'll cut them up and put them through a cut them up, put the seeds and the stems in the food mill, and then we are going to fill the jars with it. So I can't wait to show you how easy this really is. So I'm curious, how many of you have gardens? Do any of you can your own tomatoes? You know, I live in a subdivision, and I have built all of these gardens because this was so important to me. And then after 2020, we built the upper garden. And I just wanted a better choice for my food. Not to mention, I love gardening. It can heal your soul. Boy, those gardens, they have soaked up my tears, and they've watched me dance. So what I'm doing is, as the skin cracks on here, I'm going to pull them out, and I put them in a bowl so they can cool, and then we can handle them. We're not necessarily cooking them. We're just blistering that skin. Now, what if you want to put up tomatoes? What if you want to can tomatoes, but you do not have a garden? Well, my mother-in-law does not have a garden, and she buys her tomatoes at the farmer's market. Let me add a few more. We are almost done. We'll let those blister. So she'll buy a case of tomatoes at the farmer's market, and she'll make her marinara, and what else does she make? Oh, tomato soup, and she cans that. And she does kind of the hot pack water bath method. So, you know, there are ways around this if you want to produce your own food, or somebody else produces it for you and you want to start learning how to can and stay out of the grocery store. You know how things are grown, what's sprayed on it, those types of things. All right, I'm going to let the rest of this blister, and I will meet you back at the counter. All right, we are back. So let's go over everything that we're going to need to do this raw pack method of tomatoes. So we have our 2 bowls of tomatoes that are blistered, and we need to peel and stem them. And then we have lemon juice, and I buy an organic lemon juice. And I have a canning or pickling salt. So I'm going to use this on the tomatoes. I also have vinegar, and I'll explain what I use for this. And I have what is called a food mill. So I'm going to show you how to use this. Now, I picked this one up at an antique store, but I will link a food mill for you below. I have 8 quart wide mouth canning jars. So it's a wide mouth. And I'm doing quarts this time because I do have some pints already done, and I do have recipes that require 32 ounces of tomatoes. So I'm going to put some in quarts this time. That way I'm just not running through all of my pints. So we have that. We will need our ball lids, the rings. I have basil, and you'll need a sharp knife and a cutting board, and then our water bath canner. Okay. So let's get started. And I'm going to show you just how easy these skins peel off. And you're going to take your skin and put it right into the food mill. Whoops. Move that over a little bit. Core the stem. And then I'm going to cut the tomato. And what we want to do is we want to get as many of the seeds out and into the food mill as you can. Oops, I had a little piece drop. And so you can just use your fingers and they come right out. So we're going to get those seeds out of there. And then you can break the tomato apart. Now, I use the Ball book for a lot of canning references. And they have some great sauces in there, enchilada sauce, various different things that you can do. Boy, this one peels really easy. Oh, the smell is amazing. I'll take the stem out of there. A lot of the seeds fell out down on my cutting board this time. So my last video was on preserving herbs. And it's such an easy method to do that. You'll have to check that one out, especially if you have pots of herbs. Just going to move that to the side. We'll just continue on. Just like that. Hope you can see this. Anyways, in the Ball book, it says to reserve a pot of boiling water. And I don't like to do that. I don't like to can the tomatoes in water. I think they lose their flavor. So, as you can see with this food mill, the amount of juice of the normal tomato juice that's actually coming out of this as it drips down. So I'm going to show you how we're going to can using the tomato juice rather than adding water. I just think you get a better flavor of your tomatoes. Sometimes I think watering, I feel like it waters it down. So I'm going to cut the stem out. Now, before I actually did stewed tomatoes, I think that was last year or the year before I did stewed tomatoes. And those were good, but the method was a lot because you had to stew them, you had to cook them down. And I just found that this is such an easier way. Just make sure we got all the seeds out of there. Such an easier way to can your tomatoes. You know, canning doesn't have to be such a daunting task. Canning, it's easy. It is so easy to learn. So easy to learn. This takes a little bit of time. So you may notice I have a couple different tomatoes here. I grow what's called a Dester tomato. And the Dester is like your slicing tomato. And then I grow Amish paste and Sheboygan. And they are all heirloom tomatoes. I used to grow the San Marzano, but I found they were so small compared to the Amish paste. And the Amish paste just gives you that nice meaty texture to all your sauce, and you can use them even in salsa. I've mixed tomatoes for salsa. So I have cherry tomatoes, and then I'll mix the Amish paste and Sheboygan and all of those. So I am just continuing to get the seeds out. And I am going to work on this bowls. There's a lot of tomatoes here. And then I will bring you back once we get to the food mill and keep you going, give you the next steps. It's so easy. Okay, we'll see you back in a little bit. All right, so we are ready to do the food mill. I've already done one bowl, and you can see how much juice is in this bowl. And this is why I don't feel that I need to use the water. So I've got this bowl completed, and now I've got the food mill. So what does the food mill do? I have seeds and bits and pieces of tomato in here along with the skin. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to spin it. And I don't know if you can tell. Let's see, hopefully you can see, but all the juice comes out of it. It's just taking all the juice out of the skin. And the nice thing is it does not let the seeds through. Now, this method, you may have a few seeds in your tomatoes. I'm really not worried about it. It doesn't bother me, and it doesn't bother my family. Okay. And like I said, I will link this below. So we're going to set that in the sink. Look at all of that juice. So what we're going to do is just pour that juice right over the tomatoes. Okay. Now, first tip. I have my water bath canner on low. I heated it up and then I put it on low. If you have hard water, put some vinegar into the water in the canner and your jars will come out clear. If you have hard water, your jars might come out cloudy. I have forgotten the vinegar before, so I'm going to add my vinegar to the pot here. So that is one reason. And I just pour a little bit in, and then we're actually going to use the vinegar for another purpose as well. So I've got my paper towels here. Okay, so before we start canning, we're going to add some salt to the tomatoes. And I just kind of eyeball it in my hand, about a teaspoon. To these size bowls, I'm looking like about that. And then I'm just going to sprinkle it within, and I'll stir it up a little bit. So I'm looking for about that much. I'm just going to sprinkle that in. And then the other thing, let me wash my hand off. The other thing that we have that is needed with tomatoes is some acid. Now, that's funny, you might say, because tomatoes they seem acidic. I know if you make homemade tomato sauce, a lot of times people will add sugar. But in a next video, will show you my secret. I don't add sugar to any of my tomato sauce. So, with a quart, you're going to want 2 tablespoons of lemon juice in each jar. A pint is only going to need 1. And I promise you, your lemon or your tomatoes will not come out lemony. You don't taste it at all. It's just there to provide the acid to preserve the tomatoes. Hopefully I have enough in here. I might have to run downstairs to the pantry to get the rest of them, or to get another jar of lemon juice. But we'll use up what we have, and then we'll get going. So 2 tablespoons in a quart, 1 tablespoon in a pint. Might have enough. We might make it. Yay! Look at that. We are going to make it. Perfect. Okay, so we're done with the lemon juice. And then the next thing that I have is some fresh basil. My basil plant looks really bad right now, and I am just going to use up as much basil as I can. And so I'm just going to add these into the tomatoes. And I have washed it and dried it. Does anyone else grow basil? I love basil. My husband loves fresh tomato mozz in the summer. We're just going to use these up. But boy, these herbs are coming to an end. Okay, so now we are going to take our funnel. If you do not have one of these, please, by all means, in canning, grab one. I'll have it linked below. And we'll use this one first. I'm just going to stir up that salt a little bit. And when you're filling these jars, it says 1/2 inch headspace. But the last time I did it in pints at 1/2 inch headspace, I had some siphoning, and I don't want that. So I am only going to do an inch headspace. I'm going to put the tomatoes right in there with the juice. Look at that. Oh, these are so good. So what do I use these for? Well, and I am almost there. So I am just going to, so an inch of headspace, and I'll show you, is the first rung on the bottom of the lip of the jar, or the first lip. The second one would be your 1/2 inch. All right, so I'm just going to set that aside. So what do I use these for? We do braised short ribs. We get the short ribs with our cow that we purchase, and we'll do braised short ribs. There is a phenomenal Italian short rib ragu recipe, and that is from good old Giada. Grab a knife real quick. Just going to put that down so I can make sure my headspace does not go over an inch. A little bit more. That's probably going to be too much. Nope, look at that. Perfect. And I'll put that one aside as well. All right. So because this is cold packed, there's nothing hot about it, I kept my water bath, or I started it and I got it warm, but I did not get it to a raging boil yet. Ooh, that might be too much of a tomato. There we go. Check that headspace. Sometimes I got to get down there so I can see it. Perfect. I don't want to put cold jars into a hot rolling water bath. So that's why I got it warm, just so it wouldn't take so long to get it up to temp. But it'll have to come up to temp once we get everything in. Push this down and see where my headspace is. Perfect. And there is nothing better in the winter when it's cold outside to go make a warm chili with your homegrown tomatoes that taste like summer. Looks like all we are going to get is 7 jars. That's all right. It's a lot of tomatoes for 7 jars. And let's see, we're just going to pour this in. And top off with this one. And let's Let's see if we can get that in there. Perfect. Okay, now what? I'm gonna wash my hand really quick. Where the vinegar comes into play. So I like to wipe the rims off on the jars. And that way, if anything's spilled on those rims, when you put your lid on, it has that clean contact. So let's just move this out of the way. Bring our rings in. And move this out of the way as well. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my vinegar rag and I am going to wipe off the rim. I have warmed and sterilized the lids, okay? And so I'll just place that on there and I'm going to screw it on finger tight. And that's it. In a water bath canner, your jars have to process for 25 minutes. So once it comes up to a rolling boil, that is when you are going to start the timer. And then after the timer beeps off and your time is done, turn off the burner, let it sit for about 5 minutes, and then you can pull out your tomatoes. All right, I am going to finish this up. Oh, one last thing everybody needs who is canning. This is a jar lifter. So it goes like this. So what you're able to do, because the water is warm, and especially after the rolling boil, you're able to take your jar, it holds it, and you're going to put it right into your canner. You do want to make sure that your water is above the level of your jars. So I'm going to finish this up and I will bring you back on our final product. Okay, so our processing time has finished and I had turned the burner off and let it sit for about 5 minutes. So we are going to take out the finished product. First thing I want to tell you, when you pull tomato products out like this, you're going to see a lot of water at the bottom and the tomatoes seem to rise. As it cools, all of that drops down and it melds with all the juices. So let's see how everything looks. So this canner is a large water bath canner and it actually holds 7 quarts total. So it worked perfectly that we didn't get all 8. But let's see what we have. There it is. And like I said, as it cools, all of the goodness will drop down, everything will meld, and you are good to go. So at the end of your canning, what you want to listen for is the ping. My husband and I always joke that it's a pop. And that means that your jar has sealed. You want to let your jars sit for about 24 hours without moving and jostling them. And then after that, you're going to remove the bands. You can wipe the jar down. I put a label on top with my date that I canned the food. And then you can put it in your storage. Whew. And I end up just using the ball boxes to move things around because I don't have a lot of counter space. So I don't want to just leave canned goods, especially on a heavy processing day. I don't want to leave them just sitting on the counter. So I end up moving them to my dining room. There we go. Look at that. All right, so we have processed 7 jars of tomatoes in their own juices, doing a quick raw pack method that is easy with a water bath canner. Let me know if you try this method. If you have done this method before, leave it in the comments and let us know. In the meantime, I have many more videos to come. We have to tackle zucchini. We are making homemade dog food, many more. And we are going to do a grocery challenge. And don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you next time.